there comes a time in every person's life when silence becomes betrayal. Betrayal of truth, of conscience, and of the very soul God has given you. To stand up for yourself is not an act of pride. It isn't an act of obedience to the truth. It is the refusal to bow down to fear when you have been called to stand in faith. We live in an age that calls good evil and evil good. The world insists that your convictions are intolerant, your faith outdated, and your voice unnecessary. It celebrates compromise and labels it compassion. It praises silence and calls it peace. Yet, Scripture tells us that the righteous are bold as a lion. And I believe we need a generation of people willing to roar again, not in anger, but in conviction. To stand up for yourself means first to know who you are and whose you are. You cannot stand if your feet are not planted on solid ground. You will be swept away by every opinion, every criticism, every false accusation if you do not have roots in something unshakable. The person who does not know the truth cannot defend it. The person who does not know his own worth cannot demand respect. You must begin by knowing that you are created in the image of God, fearfully and wonderfully made, not an accident, not an afterthought, but a deliberate creation with purpose. And if you are made in His image, then standing up for yourself is not rebellion, it is responsibility. You were not made to blend in. You were made to shine. You were not designed to surrender your conscience to the crowd. You were made to follow the truth even when it costs you. Standing up for yourself is not arrogance. It is humility before God and courage before men. But courage does not mean recklessness. It is not shouting louder than others or forcing your will upon them. It is standing firm when everything in you wants to run. It is saying no when the easy answer is wise. It is refusing to betray your conscience for the sake of comfort. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is faith in the presence of fear. You will be misunderstood when you stand. You will be criticized, mocked, and perhaps even hated. But that's nothing new. The prophets were laughed at. The apostles were beaten. The Son of God Himself was crucified. Not for crimes, but for conviction. If you are waiting for a world that applauds your courage, you will wait forever. The applause of heaven must be enough. Standing up for yourself often begins in quiet moments. It starts when you refuse to lie to make others comfortable, when you decline to participate in gossip, when you choose integrity in your work, even if no one notices, when you forgive someone who doesn't deserve it. Not because they are right, but because you refuse to be poisoned by bitterness. Standing up for yourself doesn't always look like protest. Sometimes it looks like peace. Sometimes it is the decision to keep your dignity when others try to take it from you. But standing up for yourself is not just about personal boundaries. It is about moral boundaries. It is saying, this is where I stand, and I will not move. It is refusing to compromise truth for acceptance. It is saying to the culture, you may change your definitions, but I will not change mine. You see, conviction without courage is a whisper, but courage without conviction is a weapon without aim. You must have both, conviction rooted in truth and courage sustained by faith. You cannot defend what you do not believe. You cannot stand for what you do not understand. That is why truth must live deep in your heart. Read it, know it. Meditate on it until it becomes part of you. The strongest people are not those who shout the loudest, but those whose souls are anchored in eternal truth. When you stand for yourself, you are not merely defending your pride. You are defending the truth of who God made you to be. You are protecting the image of God within you. The enemy would love nothing more than to silence that image, to make you doubt your worth, to convince you that compromise is easier than conviction. But every time you bow to fear, something inside you breaks. Every time you refuse to stand, your spirit grows weaker. Yet every time you rise again, Every time you speak truth in love, hold your ground in grace, and walk in integrity, you become stronger. Standing up for yourself also means standing up for others who cannot stand. Strength is not selfish. Courage is contagious. When one person dares to stand, others find the courage to do the same. You may never know how many lives your boldness will touch. Your example might be the spark that lights another soul on fire. So do not underestimate the power of one faithful voice. And remember this, standing up for yourself does not mean you will always win. You might lose friends. You might lose comfort. You might lose opportunities, but you will gain peace. The kind of peace that comes only from knowing you did what was right. And that peace is worth every loss. So stand. Stand when it's hard. Stand when it's unpopular. Stand when you're tired and afraid. Stand when the crowd tells you to sit down. Stand even when you stand alone, for you are never truly alone. The God who called you to stand will stand with you. He will strengthen your heart, steady your steps, and silence your fear. And when the day is done, when history looks back, it will not remember the names of those who mocked, but the names of those who stood. Truth is always vindicated in time. The world changes, but truth does not. And those who stand for truth, those who refuse to be bought, silenced, or moved, will shine like stars forever. So, my friend, do not bow to fear. Do not surrender your conscience. Do not apologize for believing what is right. Stand up for yourself, not because you are proud, but because you are free. Stand not to be seen, but to be faithful. Stand not for applause, but for truth. And when you have done all, keep standing. To know who you are and whose you are is the foundation of all strength, confidence, and purpose. Before you can stand up for yourself, you must understand the ground on which you stand. The greatest confusion in life comes when people do not know their true identity. They chase approval. They shape themselves to fit opinions, and they drift with the winds of culture. Without a clear sense of identity, you will live at the mercy of every voice that tries to define you. But when you know who you are, you no longer need validation from those who misunderstand you. And when you know whose you are, you no longer fear those who oppose you. You were not created by chance. You were designed by the creator of the universe, formed with care, and marked with purpose. Every detail about you, your mind, your heart, your abilities, your story is intentional. You are not an accident trying to find meaning. You are a masterpiece discovering purpose. That truth alone gives strength to stand when life tries to push you down. When your confidence is rooted in who made you, criticism loses its power. You can stand tall because your worth was not assigned by people. It was declared by God. The world will try to tell you who you are. It will define you by your failures, your past, your performance, or your appearance. It will measure you by what you can produce and how well you can please others. But the truth of who you are does not come from outside voices. It comes from the one who made you. You are more than your mistakes, greater than your fears, and more valuable than your achievements. Knowing this truth changes everything. It removes the need to compare yourself to others. It frees you from the prison of perfection and from the fear of rejection. When you understand whose you are, you begin to see your life differently. You recognize that you carry the image of God Himself, and that image is not to be diminished or hidden. It is to be lived out with boldness and integrity. You begin to live not for approval, but from assurance. You stop begging for acceptance because you already belong. You stop shrinking to make others comfortable because you realize that humility is not thinking less of yourself, but thinking rightly of yourself in light of who made you. Knowing who you are gives you clarity when life becomes confusing. It helps you make decisions with conviction instead of hesitation. You do not need to follow the crowd when you understand that you were created to lead with truth. You do not need to compromise your values to feel included when you already know you are loved beyond measure. This identity becomes your armor in a world full of deception. When doubts whisper that you are not enough, truth reminds you that you were chosen. When fear tells you to hide, truth reminds you that you were made to shine. To know whose you are also means surrendering your will to something higher. It means acknowledging that your life has a divine author and that your purpose is not self-created but God-given. That realization brings freedom, not restriction. It gives you peace in the face of uncertainty and courage in the face of opposition. When you know that your steps are guided, your failures become lessons and your struggles become training. You stop seeing yourself as a victim of circumstance and begin to see yourself as a vessel of purpose. Many people spend their lives searching for identity in temporary things, status, relationships, or possessions. But those things fade. And when they do, so does the sense of worth that depends on them. Real identity is not found in what you do. It is found in who you are in the eyes of the one who made you. That kind of identity cannot be stolen or destroyed. It is eternal, secure, and unshakable. So before you try to stand up for yourself, take the time to understand who you are. Learn to see yourself through the lens of truth, not through the mirror of opinion. Know that your worth is not measured by your circumstances, and your value is not determined by your victories or your failures. You are not defined by what others say about you, but by what God has already declared over you. When you know that, you no longer need to prove yourself. You simply live with the quiet confidence of someone who already belongs. And from that place of identity, standing up for yourself is no longer a struggle of pride, but an act of faith. Conviction means nothing without courage. You can believe in the truth with all your heart, but if you lack the courage to live it, your belief remains silent and powerless. Conviction is the foundation, but courage is the voice that gives it life. It is easy to speak about what is right when the cost is low, but real conviction is tested when standing for it demands something from you. The strength of your belief is proven not by what you say in comfort, but by what you choose in conflict. Conviction alone can exist quietly in the mind, unchallenged and untested. It is courage that draws it into the light. Many people know what is right, but fail to act on it because fear paralyzes them. Fear of rejection, fear of loss, fear of criticism. These are the barriers that turn conviction into hesitation. Yet truth was never meant to stay hidden behind fear. It was meant to be lived, spoken, and embodied even when it costs you comfort or approval. Courage does not replace conviction. It completes it. Without courage, conviction is only an idea. With courage, it becomes a force. Courage is not about feeling fearless. It is about choosing to move forward, even when your hands tremble. The most courageous people are not those who never doubt, but those who act faithfully despite doubt. They understand that fear will always whisper, but faith must speak louder. They stand when others sit, not because it is easy, but because it is right. Courage gives conviction a pulse. It makes your beliefs visible in a world desperate for authenticity. When others see you hold your ground, it reminds them that truth is still alive and strength still exists. To have conviction without courage is like having light trapped under a basket. It might exist, but it illuminates nothing. Courage removes the basket and lets truth shine. And when you stand with courage, you do more than defend yourself. You declare that integrity still matters. You become a living example that truth is not negotiable. People may not agree with you, but they will respect the clarity of your stance. A world that has lost its moral compass does not need more compromise. It needs men and women with conviction strong enough to stand and courage deep enough to endure. Courage is not a natural gift. It is a decision made repeatedly. Every time you choose to speak truth when silence would be safer, your courage grows. Every time you refuse to bend your values for acceptance, your conviction strengthens. Courage is like a muscle. It grows through resistance. The more you practice it, the stronger it becomes. But the less you use it, the easier it becomes to surrender. Those who constantly give in to fear eventually lose sight of their convictions altogether. What begins as small compromises soon becomes a habit of silence. True conviction demands action. You cannot claim to love truth and remain passive when lies prevail. Courage is what transforms belief into behavior. It is the bridge between knowing and doing. And while courage may bring conflict, it also brings peace. The deep, unshakable peace that comes from knowing you have remained faithful to what is right. The world may not reward your courage, but your conscience will. You will sleep at night knowing you chose integrity over comfort. Courage also exposes the difference between opinion and conviction. Opinions are easy to hold because they require nothing from you. Convictions are costly because they require consistency. Courage is what sustains that consistency when pressure comes. It keeps you steady when voices around you demand compromise. It reminds you that temporary pain is better than permanent regret. The person who stands with courage may face storms, but they will never be swept away by them. Every generation needs those who are not afraid to live what they believe. Courageous conviction changes cultures, defends truth, and protects integrity. It turns ordinary people into leaders and witnesses. Without courage, conviction fades into theory. But when courage joins hands with conviction, truth becomes unstoppable. Standing firm may cost you comfort, but it brings peace. The world often teaches that peace comes from avoiding conflict, from blending in, and from keeping silent when standing out would draw criticism. Yet real peace is not the absence of struggle. It is the presence of integrity. You cannot have inner peace while outwardly betraying your conscience. To live in comfort at the expense of conviction is to live divided within yourself, and that division will never rest. The temporary comfort of compromise always gives way to the lasting pain of regret, but the momentary cost of standing firm gives birth to a deeper, enduring peace. Standing firm means holding your ground when every voice around you tells you to move. It means refusing to exchange what is right for what is easy. The crowd will often choose convenience over character, and many will call you stubborn or unkind when you refuse to join them. But peace does not come from pleasing people. It comes from pleasing truth. The one who stands firm may stand alone for a time, but that solitude is sacred. It is the place where your convictions are purified and your soul learns to trust the strength of God more than the approval of men. Comfort is a seductive trap. It promises safety, but it slowly steals courage. It tells you that silence will protect you, that compromise will make life easier. But in truth, it only weakens the foundation of who you are. Every time you choose comfort over conviction, your spirit loses a little of its strength. You begin to doubt what you once knew, to hesitate when you once stood boldly. Before long, you find yourself shaped by the opinions of others instead of by the truth that once anchored you. The person who values comfort above principle will always live in quiet fear, afraid to lose what they have, afraid to face what they know is wrong. True peace is different. It does not depend on surroundings. It comes from alignment between what you believe and how you live. When your heart, mind, and actions are united under truth, you walk in a peace that cannot be shaken by circumstance. You may face storms, criticism, or loss, but deep inside, there is stillness. You know you have done what is right. You know your integrity remains intact. That kind of peace cannot be purchased. It must be earned through faithfulness. It is the reward of those who stand firm, even when the ground feels uncertain. Standing firm may mean walking away from situations that others would tolerate. It may mean saying no when everyone else says yes. It may mean choosing honesty when dishonesty would be easier. It may cost relationships, opportunities, or comfort, but every sacrifice made for the sake of truth becomes a seed of peace planted in the soul. Those who bow to convenience may seem happier in the moment, but those who remain steadfast will find a joy that endures beyond the moment. The road of conviction is not always smooth, but it leads to a destination of rest that the path of compromise can never reach. Peace does not come from avoiding conflict. It comes from conquering fear. It is born when you face the cost of standing and choose to pay it anyway. The person who stands firm learns to live with clarity. They no longer need to calculate what others will think or say. They no longer bend their values to match the room they are in. Their hearts are settled because their direction is clear. This unshakable peace becomes a quiet strength, steady, enduring, and unbreakable. It does not come cheaply, but it comes completely. When you stand firm, you learn that comfort is fleeting, but peace is forever. The comfort you lose will return in a stronger form, not as ease, but as assurance. The trials you face will forge your character, and the loneliness you endure will deepen your faith. Standing firm may separate you from the crowd, but it will bring you closer to the truth. And when you walk in truth, you walk in peace. Truth is worth more than approval. In a world where acceptance is often treated as the highest prize, standing for truth becomes an act of quiet rebellion. People crave validation, applause, and the comfort of belonging. But the pursuit of approval is a fragile foundation on which to build a life. Approval can change with the mood of the crowd, but truth never changes. It does not bend to opinion or evolve with culture. It remains steady when everything else shifts. Those who choose truth over popularity may walk a lonelier path, but they walk it with strength and freedom, unburdened by the need to please everyone. Approval is temporary. It can be given today and taken away tomorrow. It depends on how well you fit into someone else's expectations, not on who you truly are. The person who lives for approval becomes a slave to perception, constantly adjusting their words and actions to keep others happy. But truth asks for something deeper. It calls you to be consistent, to live by principle, even when it costs you favor. Choosing truth means accepting that you will not always be liked, understood, or celebrated. But it also means you will live with integrity, and integrity is a treasure the world cannot give or take away. Truth is not determined by the number of people who believe it. History is full of moments when the majority was wrong, and the few who stood for truth were ridiculed or rejected. Approval is easy to win when you say what people want to hear, but truth often offends before it heals. It exposes what is false and demands what is right. To stand for truth is to value eternal principles over temporary comfort. It is to see clearly that applause fades, but a clean conscience endures. The peace that comes from knowing you have spoken and lived honestly outweighs the fleeting satisfaction of being accepted by those who have lost their way. Approval can make you feel powerful, but only truth can make you strong. The person who builds their identity on the shifting sands of public opinion will always feel unstable. They will need constant affirmation to feel secure. But when you stand on truth, you do not need to chase approval because you already possess confidence rooted in what is real. Truth anchors you. It gives you clarity when others are confused, and steadiness when others are swayed by trends. It frees you from the exhausting cycle of performing for acceptance. Choosing truth over approval often exposes you to criticism, but criticism cannot destroy what is built on conviction. Those who oppose you may be loud, but they are not lasting. Time always reveals the difference between flattery and faithfulness. When you speak truth, some will resist it, but others will be set free by it. Your courage might not be celebrated today, but it will be remembered long after the voices of approval have faded. The influence of truth endures because it touches hearts that hunger for something real. Truth costs something because it challenges comfort. It calls you to be honest even when honesty complicates things. It requires you to confront lies, to take responsibility, to walk away from deceit, even if that means standing alone. But every sacrifice made for truth strengthens your character. You learn to value what lasts instead of what merely shines. Approval is loud but shallow. Truth is quiet but deep. One fills your ego. The other fills your soul. There will always be pressure to conform, to soften your convictions so that you can fit in. But when you trade truth for approval, you lose both. Those who respect you for your compromise will not trust you for your courage. Those who follow truth, even through rejection, gain a peace and strength that no amount of applause can replace. The person who clings to truth learns that acceptance is a gift, not a goal. You no longer chase it because what you stand for is worth infinitely more than who stands with you. When you've done all you can, keep standing. There will come moments when you feel you've reached your limit, when every effort seems wasted and every step forward feels heavier than the last. You will face seasons when exhaustion whispers that it's easier to give up than to keep going. Yet it is in those very moments that true strength is revealed. Standing is not always about visible victory. Sometimes it is about quiet endurance. When you have done all you know to do, prayed, believed, worked, forgiven, endured, then your calling is simple: remain standing. Standing does not always mean movement. Sometimes it means holding your position when everything around you is trying to move you off course. It means refusing to let go of your convictions even when progress feels impossible. You may not see results, you may not feel strong, but perseverance is the proof of faith. There is courage in simply refusing to fall. Every person who has ever stood for something great has faced moments of weariness, moments when quitting seemed logical. But greatness is never born in comfort. It is forged in the struggle to remain steadfast when the easy path calls your name. To keep standing is to trust that your endurance has purpose. It is to believe that the unseen work within you is just as valuable as the visible work around you. When you stand, you grow in ways you cannot measure. You develop resilience, patience, and wisdom that only resistance can produce. The world teaches that success is measured by progress, but sometimes success is simply standing in faith when the storm is strongest. You learn that true victory is not always in what changes outside you, but in what remains unbroken inside you. Every trial tests your foundation. It will ask what you truly believe, what you truly value, and where your hope truly lies. Standing when everything shakes reveals what cannot be shaken. When disappointment tries to crush you, standing means you still believe purpose exists beyond pain. When fear tells you to run, standing means you still trust that courage is possible. Each time you stand, you declare that your faith is stronger than your fear, your hope greater than your hurt. You are not waiting for everything to be easy before you stand. You are choosing to stand because you know who holds you steady. The world admires those who rise quickly, but it forgets that endurance is the mark of true strength. Standing requires more than passion. It requires perseverance. Passion starts the journey, but perseverance finishes it. You do not need applause to keep standing. You need conviction. You do not need comfort to keep standing. You need purpose. The one who endures quietly often accomplishes more than the one who moves loudly. Standing is an act of defiance against despair. It says that giving up is not an option, that truth still matters, and that faith still works even when feelings fade. There will be times when standing feels lonely. You may look around and see others walking away, compromising or losing faith. You may question whether your stand is worth it, whether it makes any difference. But even when no one sees your endurance, it still matters. Every time you stand in truth, you strengthen the ground beneath you and make it firmer for those who come after you. You may not realize it, but someone is watching your perseverance and finding the courage to continue their own. When you've done all you can, keep standing, because standing is the final expression of faith. It says you still believe in purpose even without proof. It says that your values are not negotiable, your hope is not gone, and your spirit is not broken. The storm may rage, but you are still here. The battle may be fierce, but your ground is not lost. To stand is to declare that you will not be moved, that your heart remains steadfast, and that truth is still worth every ounce of strength you have left.